A system window abruptly forces itself into Dowan Ha's vision, initiating a new chain quest titled Judge of Injustice. The absurd directive demands he strike Jae-min Shin on the head with a microphone, offering a bronze key as a reward within a 30-minute window. As he reads the prompt, the reality of the situation hits. Wait, strike his head with a mic? This is part of the game-like reality he has been thrust into, where such bizarre, violent instructions are presented with cold, mechanical detachment. The interface adds a legal disclaimer regarding the fictitious nature of these incidents, but for Dowan, the threat is all too real. Dowan Ha stands frozen, his hands trembling as he grips the microphone. He can't help but think how absurd it would be to actually carry out such a violent command. The system window lingers, a constant reminder of the stakes. He is internally shouting his defiance. I won't. Never. Even if it kills me, I won't. A sharp ding pierces the air as a notification box manifests. The system is unrelenting, issuing a cold warning: failure to complete the quest will result in a penalty. Dowan is left staring at the screen in disbelief, wondering what kind of nightmare this is. Dowan Ha's eyes widen in sheer terror as he processes the notification. A penalty? Does that mean? He thinks, his mind spiraling as he contemplates what could possibly happen if he fails this twisted game. Dowan's mind flashes to a terrifying, visceral memory, a stampede of dark, monstrous beasts rushing toward him. He is still reeling, the question mark hanging over his head as he realizes that the penalty might involve enduring such horrific trials all over again. Sweat beads on Dowan Ha's forehead as he stands completely paralyzed by the pressure. I'll have to endure that again, he gasps internally, his sanity fraying as the reality of this quest-driven life begins to set in. The tension shifts when a voice breaks through the silence, addressing the man known as Manchun. Manchun, you look like a killer right now, his companion jokes, followed by an emphatic, like actually. The room is tense, the air thick with the remnants of recent violence. Manchun, splattered with fresh blood, doesn't seem bothered by the observation. He casually remarks, "Oh, I beat up a couple of guys on my way here. It looks like their blood got on." His voice trails off as his body begins to shake with a lingering, volatile intensity. Manchun scoffs at the terrified young man crouched before him, mocking his tremors by asking, "What are you, a washing machine? Why do you keep shaking?" He gestures to the room, adding dismissively, "This place lets you borrow a pair of pants. You should be grateful." It is clear that Manchun Yuk, 18, holds all the power here, and he is enjoying every second of the boy's fear. The atmosphere remains chillingly cruel as Manchun stares down his target, his expression darkening as he warns, "If you fall over, I'm going to kill you." Meanwhile, another student nearby finds the entire spectacle hilarious, laughing as he exclaims, "That's hilarious. Ha ha." Dowan Ha, observing the scene, is left to wonder in the back of his mind, how did I end up here? The tension was suffocating as they stood there, the weight of the situation pressing in on them. They were already struggling with the sheer nightmare of having to smash Jaemin's head as it is, and the questions they faced were just as brutal. "But is that true?" one of them asked, eyes wide with uncertainty. What is?" the others echoed back. But the real dread was settling in, because what was worse was yet to come. The conversation took a dark turn as they questioned if Cheolwoo had really been ripped apart by this punk. Their expressions shifted to pure confusion and shock at the thought. As the reality of their situation hit them, they realized with growing panic that this tattooed pig was right next to them. One of them insisted that Dowan didn't joke around, though the other could only look at him dismissively, remarking that he looked like just a bag of bones to him. Beneath that exchange, a desperate internal monologue was raging. If he completed the quest, these guys would surely beat him to death. And if he failed, the consequences would be even more horrific, as those beasts would stomp him to death. He desperately needed an out. If only he could just use his skill like last time, he told himself, he would have the courage to at least try to fight back. A notification sounded, a cold, mechanical ding, signaling the display of his active skills, though most were shrouded in question marks. One skill stood out, 1,000 punches, which required 200 mana. But the interface mocked him with the word locked. Everything was ruined because of that damned seal. He clutched his head in pure despair, the internal torment leaking out as he cried that his life was over. The system flashed a cold reminder, only 15 minutes remained. Jaemin then broke the silence, turning his attention toward Dowan to ask a question. Dowan, caught off guard, simply replied, "Yeah?" The mood in the room shifted instantly as Jaemin stared Dowan down, his tone dripping with casual disdain. He challenged Dowan directly, questioning how, if he was truly strong enough to take down Cheolwoman, he had allowed himself to be pushed around like a target until now. Caught in the hot seat, Dowan struggled to find the right words. He couldn't exactly tell him that his victory came from using a bizarre, game-like skill. His hesitation was palpable, he was completely stuck on how to navigate this dangerous conversation. Jaemin, seemingly unfazed by the silence, leaned back and told Dowan not to worry about answering if he wasn't ready, assuming there must be a reason for his past behavior. He quickly steered the conversation elsewhere, noting that the real reason he had called Dowan there today was to tell him something important. Dowan, braced for a threat, braced himself for whatever blow was coming. "What is it?" he asked, expecting to be told that any future defiance would result in his death. He stood there, waiting for the other shoe to drop. But Jaemin had no intention of killing him. Instead, he made his intent clear, reaching out with a simple, chilling command, "Join me." The audacity of the proposal left Dowan completely stunned. Dowan could barely process what he had just heard. "What?" he stammered, his mind reeling as he tried to figure out exactly what kind of game Jaemin was playing. Jaemin doubled down without missing a beat, stating flatly that he needed Dowan's help. He demanded he join his gang and help him take over the Gwanik district, a request so insane it made Jaemin look like a total douche for even suggesting he could pull it off alone. Sensing Dowan's hesitation, Jaemin leaned in with a predatory look. He assured him that there would be something in it for him too, he just had to be willing to look at what was being offered. Jaemin gestured toward the table, filled with the trappings of their lifestyle, cheap alcohol and cigarettes, the small consolations of their world. He made it sound so simple, as if money and having lackeys at his beck and call were just natural givens in their world, waiting for Dowan to claim his share. Jaemin continued to lay out his pitch, suggesting that this lifestyle offered more than just basics, there would be other extra perks for Dowan Ha as well if he joined them. He leaned in close, making it clear that by siding with them, Dowan would be able to have whatever he wanted, no strings attached. Dowan was quick to deflect, stammering that he didn't really want anything, he just wanted to game. Internally, he scoffed at the offer, questioning if they really thought he was naive enough to fall for such obvious traps. He kept his posture guarded, thinking to himself that he didn't stand a chance against their influence, yet deep down, he knew his only true interest lay in the world of games. His internal resolve hardened as he realized he had no interest in hanging around with bullies like them. He wondered to himself if he was really planning to. Dowan paused, questioning if he was truly ready to keep living this life as a substitute gamer, or if there was another way. Jaemin cut back in, playing on Dowan's deep-seated resentment. He reminded him that he finally had the chance to take revenge on all the punks who had tormented him up till now, framing it simply as an opportunity to change roles. Dowan sat in silence, weighing the cost of the alliance. He pondered the distance between himself and his bullies, wondering if siding with someone like Jaemin would finally bridge that gap. Flashes of his past flickered through his mind, the humiliations he endured, prompting the internal question, did this mean? The memories of being pinned down and manhandled by those same bullies hit him hard, bringing the final, desperate hope, if he did this, would he finally not have to be treated like that anymore? Jaemin stood up, nonchalantly telling Dowan there was no need to answer right away. He told him to take his time and really think about it before turning away to handle some personal business, leaving the room to go take a piss. Dowan Ha's mind raced as he contemplated his recent evolution, realizing there had to be a reason for his sudden surge in power. It felt like a gift from the heavens, a lifeline meant to pull him out of his miserable reality as a substitute gamer. This was it, his chance to start a second chapter in life, finally among the cool kids. He stammered, rummaging around as he tried to gather his thoughts. He held out the object, asking if it belonged to the other boy, who immediately realized it was his quest reward. The boy looked puzzled, wondering why Dowan had his key, only for Dowan to explain that he had simply picked it up after they bumped into each other in the hallway earlier that day. The boy realized that was when he must have dropped it, admitting he had been so caught up in the heat of the quest that he hadn't even noticed it was gone. After accepting the key, the boy offered a quiet thanks. Yet, he seemed hesitant, remarking that he wasn't entirely sure if it was his place to say what was on his mind. He lowered his voice to warn Dowan that hanging around Jaemin was not a good idea, a comment that left Dowan looking completely confused. Dowan was taken aback, wondering why the boy would say that to him. He questioned if the boy expected him to just go back to living like a loser, refusing to accept that path when he finally had a golden opportunity, swearing he wouldn't miss this chance because he refused to live like the boy did. Dowan looked at him, feeling that, in truth, the boy didn't really seem like a bad guy at all. The boy, realizing he might have crossed a line, quickly apologized if his words had caused any offense. Suddenly, a sharp chime rang out from the system, signaling that time was running out, only 3 minutes remained. Dowan is visibly agitated, biting his nails as a system window flashes with a warning, time is running out, with only 3 minutes left. Damn it! Already, he thinks, panicked. He continues to pace mentally, wondering if his worst fears are about to come true, specifically if he's destined to have his balls stomped on within these final 3 minutes. He tries to steady his nerves, telling himself, no. If I just endure it for an hour, it'll be smooth sailing from there. He stands tall, determined to shake off the anxiety, thinking to himself, I'm going to strut around school for once. Dowan hesitates, worried about the social fallout. But I don't want to writhe in pain in front of these girls, he thinks, deciding that he's got to make a call to find a way out, whispering to himself that he should just head outside. The scene shifts abruptly to a symbolic view of a vast, grassy plain where a herd of elephants trumpet, their calls echoing across the landscape. A solemn observation appears on the screen, reflecting on the natural order, when an elephant feels that death is imminent. It leaves its herd, continuing to drift into solitude, and prepares for its death in isolation. The mood darkens as the analogy hits home. It's just like the storage room marked staff only, a place where one might go to hide away from the world. That is exactly what Dowan is doing right now. Huddled and gagged, he struggles with his bindings, gasping for breath and thinking, I'm so scared that I feel like I'm going to die. The system display updates with cold efficiency, showing the final countdown, only 30 seconds remaining. Dowan is trembling uncontrollably, his breath hitching in his chest. He weighs his options, thinking, but if I want to side with Jaemin, failing this quest is my best bet. A chilling system display dominates the view, marking the relentless countdown toward the climax of Dowan Ha's crisis, only 20 seconds left. Dowan Ha remains trapped and gagged, sweat beading on his skin as he grapples with the crushing weight of his situation. He desperately contemplates whether this failure to complete the quest is actually his best path to escape his life as a substitute gamer loser. The tension spikes as the timer flickers again, the system heartlessly announcing that there are now only 9 seconds remaining. Sparks of raw energy dance around Dowan Ha's face as he steels himself for the final maneuver. He realizes this is the only way forward and shouts internally that the moment he has been waiting for is finally arriving. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to a karaoke room where a man, looking slightly disheveled, mentions he feels a bit drunk and ready to sing. He orders Flower Lady, song number 01817, and stands up to prepare for his performance. The group around him immediately protests, with one voice calling the track too old and questioning who would still sing it. Unbothered, the man scoffs at their lack of taste, asking if they even know how the blues can tug at a man's heartstrings before demanding the microphone. A nearby woman looks down at the table, confused by a sudden disappearance. She wonders aloud why something that was just sitting right there has vanished. A door marked for men swings open with a sharp, echoing clack, signaling a disruption in the room's atmosphere. The door creaks open to reveal a man clutching his stomach, looking visibly unwell as he mutters in pain, wondering if he ate something bad. He groans that his stomach is killing him, unaware that behind him, the situation is escalating into something far more intense, with system notifications and warnings closing in on him at 30 seconds. Dowan Ha lashes out with fierce resolve, refusing to be drawn into their criminal world as he smashes into his antagonist, exclaiming that he will not join their gang, you bastard. The blow lands with devastating impact, forcing a choked, pained cry of "Karg" from his opponent. With a heavy thud, the bully collapses to the ground, defeated by the sudden and precise strike, leaving Dowan Ha standing over him, catching his breath. A crisp ding resonates through the air as the system confirms that Chain Quest, Judge of Injustice, is complete. Dowan struggles to maintain his composure, gasping for air as he grapples with the realization that no matter how he thinks about it, the struggle is far from over. Dowan is defiant even in his exhaustion, declaring that he would rather live as a loser than become a cruel bully like them, insisting that his actions were not driven by the system's penalty, but by his own choice. As he drags the unconscious body away, Dowan mutters that he is relieved it only took one blow to knock him out. He knows he has to hide the evidence and run away before anyone discovers what happened. His mind races with worry, agonizing over the fate of Jihan Yu, who is still trapped in that room with the dangerous, tattooed individual. Dowan pauses, a puzzled escaping his lips as he notices something on the floor, whispering to himself that it must be significant. Inside the room, the scene is jarring. A man is singing into a microphone, shouting "Oh, flower lady," as the loud music booms through the space. The singer continues his performance with a flourish, calling out that he will give her his everything, completely oblivious to the chaos brewing just outside. At 8:30, a notification from Jae Shin pops up on the phone, aggressively mocking Dowan Ha for his poor singing skills and dismissing him as a fat pig before prompting him to push for a reply. Dowan Ha stares at the device, his brow furrowing in irritation as he recoils at the sight of the message, muttering Jaemin's name in disbelief. The sound of tapping fills the quiet space as Dowan Ha continues to interact with the device, muttering to himself that he might as well just do one more wild thing while he's at it. The screen displays a series of toxic messages from Manchun Yuk, who had sent insults at 8:30 and 8:31, mocking him about grazing flowers on all fours and asking if he was mad enough to fight. Before that, at 1 p.m., he had demanded that Dowan send everyone home and wait by himself, implying this would be enough to get Jihan Yu to leave. As he remains huddled there, he realizes with a sinking feeling that he'd better act fast. Suddenly, the intimidating presence of Manchun Yuk looms over him, and Dowan Ha realizes that he is in immediate danger, desperately thinking he needs to run away. Looking up at the giant standing over him, Dowan Ha can only whisper, "Ha," as he wonders what this bastard is doing here. A sudden notification rings out as an emergency quest triggers, because Dowan Ha has aggravated and angered Manchun Yuk. A battle is set to begin soon, leaving him thinking to himself that he is truly screwed. Before he can even react, a swift kick connects with him, forcing a pained cry of "ack," as he is sent flying. He hits the floor with a heavy thud, gasping out a choked "karg," as the impact leaves him reeling. Manchun Yuk loomed over his battered victim, his face twisted into a menacing grin as he spat, "Hey, asshole. You wanna know something?" He yanked the young man up by his shirt, sneering that Jaemin doesn't even bother sending messages when he is drunk, before delivering a brutal grab to emphasize his dominance. Without warning, Manchun Yuk unleashed a devastating smash, his fist connecting squarely with the victim's face in a spray of blood and violence. As the victim reeled from the blow, Manchun Yuk mocked him, his voice dripping with cruelty, "I thought Jaemin really liked you." Before the victim could even process the taunt, Manchun Yuk reached out, his massive hand closing around his head to pin him in place. With a cold, sudden slap, he struck again, growling, "You dare betray someone that reached out to you?" He paused briefly, murmuring, but," before following up with another sharp slap that sent his victim's head reeling. Manchun Yuk stood over him, dismissive and cruel. "You just seem like a loser. Why did Jaemin try to persuade you?" He glanced toward the floor, narrowing his eyes as he added, "And why is he sleeping over there?" Manchun Yuk paused, a thoughtful, calculating look crossing his features. Then, his eyes widened with sinister realization, a jagged laugh escaping his lips. "Ahaha, I knew it." The tormentors loomed over their prey, mockingly questioning if he had been foolish enough to try and knock them out with the microphone tucked into his pocket. They sneered, labeling him a coward for the pathetic attempt. Dowan Ha, battered and bloodied, could only gasp out a fractured protest, his voice trembling as he was grabbed by the collar. He fought to maintain his defiance even in defeat, snapping back at them. He declared that they were the true cowards, preying on the weak for pocket change, before trailing off as he challenged the very idea that he would ever consider joining their ranks. His defiance was met with a brutal, dismissive command to shut up as he was forcefully flung away. Dowan Ha crashed into the clutter of the room, the impact shaking the surroundings with a heavy thud. The bully wasn't finished, callously remarking that it was a shame the wallet punk was such a loser, before warning Dowan that he was headed for the exact same fate. Dowan Ha groaned, dazed by the violence, while a metallic clinking sound echoed as something slipped from his person. A mysterious object clattered onto the floor beside him. He stared at it, bewildered, realizing it was a key. A system notification pulsed in his mind, identifying the item as a legendary gold key that emitted a faint, ethereal light, with instructions to simply insert and turn it. Yet, as he clutched the item, he was left with one lingering, desperate question: exactly where was he supposed to insert such a thing? Suddenly, an abrupt ping echoed through his consciousness, signaling a new development that left him wide-eyed and startled. A message from the system manager flickered into his mind, bluntly questioning why a key wouldn't simply fit into a keyhole, especially since he was currently surrounded by so many possible keyholes. Dowan Ha sat in stunned silence, still trying to process the cryptic system message while the notification about the manager's logic echoed in his thoughts. He opened his active skill window, only to find it riddled with question marks, leaving him to wonder why his entire skill interface had suddenly transformed. He stared intently at the glowing keyhole icon, struck by a sudden realization as he whispered to himself, wondering if the shape of the key was meant to match this specific lock. With the system prompt urging him to insert the key and turn it, he braced himself and carefully pressed the object into the slot, hearing a sharp, mechanical clink as metal met interface. As he followed the command to turn it, a definitive clack resonated through his consciousness, signaling the lock had finally been engaged. A blinding flash erupted from the interface, leaving him reeling and completely bewildered by the sudden surge of energy. Nearby, someone nudged him with a mocking poke, asking if he was still alive and checking to see if he was actually okay. The individual scoffed, clearly finding it embarrassing that he had been knocked out so easily, offering a sarcastic ouch as he gloated over the situation. Though he admitted it hurt like hell, he forced himself to take a step, realizing that if he didn't fight back right now, he wouldn't be a man anymore. The tormentor stood before Dowan Ha, his knuckles cracking with a menacing sound as he gloated, mocking the young man by questioning if he truly had any pride left. Dowan Ha stammered a hesitant reply, internally reeling as the harsh system warning flashed before his eyes, declaring that avoiding a battle would result in a penalty, a brutal reality that demanded he fight to protect his pride. His aggressor laughed, clearly amused by Dowan's stubbornness, retorting that his refusal to back down was the only thing he actually liked about him before leaping forward. The bully roared for Dowan to bring it on, his heavy footsteps thundering as he stomped down the stairs, leaving Dowan to wonder why he kept finding himself in these impossible, dangerous fights. As his feet crackled with sudden, electrical sparks, Dowan couldn't help but question why the game system had granted him such volatile powers in the first place. He pondered why it kept pushing him into these deadly confrontations, but as he prepared to jump, he realized that now he finally understood its intent. With a swift, blurred movement, Dowan launched himself into the fray, realizing with grim clarity that the system desperately wanted to see a lowly loser finally annihilate these bullies. Dowan's face twisted into a feral snarl, fueled by the insults and the sheer absurdity of the endless series of titles and warnings flashing around him, reminding him that he was essentially fodder in a world full of rankers, blacksmiths, and dukes, all serving as mere background noise to his desperate struggle for survival.